Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our fifth Mary Talk of the season. My name is Jeremy Vaughn. I am the Associate Director of Alumni Programs and Director of Arts Advancement here at Mary Washington. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's Mary Talk, featuring Paul Binkley, Executive Director for the Center for Career and Professional Development, as he presents Designing Your Life During and After COVID-19. Tonight's lecture marks our third digital presentation of Mary Talks since the pandemic, and we are pleased to have you join us virtually. We're excited to welcome all participants of tonight's lecture, which includes students, alumni, parents, friends, all in all, over 300 viewers from across the country, including Colorado, Maine, Florida, California, and internationally from places as far away as Hanoi, Vietnam, over 8,000 miles away. As with past digital lectures, there will be time after the talk for Dr. Binkley to answer any questions you might have, so keep that in mind as you listen to tonight's presentation. Feel free to write any questions in the comment area to my right, and we'll do our best to get to them as we can. Before we begin, a few words about our presenter. Dr. Paul Binkley has over 20 years of career services, student affairs, international development, and higher education management experience. Currently, he is implementing a strategy to integrate core career readiness competencies into a liberal arts curriculum as the Executive Director of the Center for Career and Professional Development here at Mary Washington. Prior to UMW, he directed the Student Career Development Team at the Johns Hopkins University's Homewood Career Center. Prior to Johns Hopkins, he worked in Monrovia, Liberia for over 3 years, first as an education officer with the U.S. Agency for International Development, and then as the resident director for the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs. Paul spent 13 years working in career development at the George Washington University in DC, with the Trachtenberg School of Public Policy and Public Administration and the Elliott School of International Affairs. He has also worked in Afghanistan, Barbados, Iraq, Kosovo, Tajikistan, and several other countries in Europe and Africa as an independent contractor and as an elections observer with the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Paul has been recognized for his significant knowledge and expertise in the area of federal careers, and in 2012 teamed with Catherine Troutman, a noted federal careers expert, to author the book Students' Federal Career Guide: How Students, Student Vets, and Recent Grads Land a Federal Job. Paul holds a doctorate in higher education administration from GWU, a master's degree in international affairs from the University of Kentucky, a certificate in human performance improvement, and is a certified MBTI facilitator and a board certified coach. Paul is originally from central Minnesota. It is now my honor to present Professor and Dr. Paul Binkley. Paul, welcome to Mary Talks. And I'm going to unmute you here in a second. Give me a second.
All right.
There we go.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeremy. I appreciate it. Can you see me?
Almost. I can't see you.
I think I'm frozen.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, great. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Thanks so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. I'm excited about this, and I'm excited to kind of chat with you about something that I'm pretty excited about, the design thinking. I will admit, I am coming to you from my office at the University of Mary Washington. Looking out my window right now, and I can see the construction going on in Virginia Hall. It's not actually happening now, but I can see a lot of the tools and such. And it's nice to be back in my office. This is the first time I've been here for more than a minute or two in the last month and a half. And so I couldn't resist the opportunity to be here and speak with you from this space. I'm going to share with you my screen now. Let's see. And I hope you can see it. Let's see, let's do this. There we go. Jeremy, I'm assuming you can see it, so I'm just going to kind of move on. So again, having me, I appreciate it. I wanted to chat today. My presentation today, really, I have two kind of main goals. I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about the design thinking framework that I was introduced to maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Became really excited about because it is a great way to rethink the way that we look at the world and we kind of approach ourselves and problem solving in particular. And then I want to share some ideas with you for how we can take advantage of this time that we have together, and then also time that we have during COVID. This is obviously an unprecedented experience for all of us, and I want to share some tips and tricks that I've kind of picked up since this all started that I think will be helpful. While most of my comments this evening are going to be geared towards students, recent grads, maybe younger alumni, I do think that everything I talk about today is going to be really appropriate and useful for all of us. I found it very useful in my life too. I'm going to end my presentation too with some small action steps that I think are good for us or that we can use at this time, because I think it's important for us to break this into smaller pieces to kind of help us cope and not only survive but thrive during this time. And while I just mentioned how unprecedented this is, this experience for man. I mean, we're constantly reminded of the pandemic. We're constantly bombarded by the media about flattening the curve and the number of people who've been infected worldwide and in the U.S. The economy has taken a huge hit and likely will be, in recovery mode for quite some time to come. And as we all know, it's going to be a challenge for quite some time. It's unknown. And social distancing is making it difficult for a lot of people to adjust. I know that I'm having a hard time with it. It's been an adjustment. I am an introvert by nature, but it is nice to see my colleagues and see my friends. And honestly, I think my cats are getting sick of me. But I really think that the social distancing is having a big impact on all of us. That being said, however, I really am optimistic about this time and for us too, and more so than I think I was during the Great Recession. We know what the cause is. We know what's going on. We know what the impact is. We know what we need to attack, we need to address. And we all have a way to help, even if it is staying home and distancing ourselves and being mindful of our situation. And honestly, employers are still engaged too, even though the economy is taking a hit. And a lot of employers are struggling, having a lot of difficulty, especially the smaller to mid-sized employers. There are a lot of employers out there who are still engaged with my office, with students, with other people. And the main reason for that, I think, is that they know that this is going to end too, that this is going to come to an end, and then they're going to need to hit the ground running and recover pretty quickly. And the technology that we have available to us now really helps us do all the things, or much of the things, or many of the things that we need to do professionally and personally. Although we are a social animal, we need interaction with other people. I was thinking the other day about how different this would be if this was happening in even maybe the early 2000s, the 1990s. I think it would be a lot more difficult to adjust to all this. And so for those reasons and for others, I'm very confident and very optimistic about where we're going and what we're doing. And I think what we're going to talk about now with design thinking is one way for us to kind of reframe our mental state and help us kind of take small steps to get to where we want to go. And so let me kind of give you a quick overview of what design thinking is. In reality, design thinking is, in my own definition, kind of just another term for problem solving. It's also known in a lot of circles as human-centered design. It is focused on humans at the center of identifying problems and solving problems. And so it's a little bit different from your traditional identify the problem, test it, et cetera. Whereas this is, let's look at the people who are at the center of it and the problem that they're facing. And through this methodology, it really encourages the curiosity and encourages us to explore opportunities and to do things as opposed to just thinking about things. And it helps build confidence. And I'm going to go through that a little bit here in a second. One of the great things I love about design thinking is that it involves something called failure immunity. And I'm going to address that here in a minute. And it is a great way for us to reframe our dysfunctional beliefs. I should say too that this design thinking came from the engineering discipline. But it has been, in the last 10 or 15 years, taken on and introduced more at the personal level, the social level, by faculty members at the Stanford University's design school. And it's really proliferated throughout higher education and throughout all education. Um, and I think it's done wonders for us here at the Career Center too. We've incorporated this into one of our career-related classes, and the students have come away from that class really feeling like they have the ability and the confidence to do what they need to do, and to face some of the challenges that they're going to face going forward. What we found from those students, and what I found throughout the years of my career, is that we all have a lot of, as I mentioned, dysfunctional beliefs about how we need to be productive and successful in all cases. And so um, throughout my career up until a certain point, even sometimes even now, I think to myself, I should know what I must be doing already. I should know all this, or I just have to find that one right idea to really solve my problem. It's out there and I've got to find it. Or, you know, to be happy, I have to make the right choices. I have to make them right now. I have to have it perfect. And also, my success in life is determined by outcomes. Like, what criteria do I have, specific criteria that I can use to measure? And typically, what that includes is, how do I compare myself to other people? Which can be difficult. All these things and more, these dysfunctional beliefs kind of make it difficult for us to really enjoy our daily lives and be in the here and now, and to feel confident in what we're doing and know that yes, we're going to make mistakes, and that is okay, and that where we are right now at this moment is very important for us to reflect on that and to pay attention to it. And so, as I mentioned here at the Career Center, we have adopted a lot of the principles of design thinking, and we've incorporated it into one of our classes. And we're using the book that Drs. Burnett and Evans wrote a number of years ago called Designing Your Life. And we've kind of adapted their principles into four main principles for our classroom, for our class. The first being start with empathy, and I'm going to go through each of these. Is start with empathy, be curious, discover your passion, don't follow your passion, discover it or build it. And we do that through curiosity. We're also going to have a bias towards action or for action. As I mentioned earlier, we need to do things, try things, and maybe spend less time thinking and more time doing. And then one of my favorites is radical collaboration. This idea that we are not alone, and that the more we share our ideas with others, the better it is for everyone. So let me start just kind of going through the main principles in a little bit more detail. The first and the most important is empathy. Putting the human in the center, putting us in the center, starting with empathy for ourselves. And I think this is particularly important at this time. I was reading some research the other day that basically said that because we are bombarded or constantly in the midst of information or stress about COVID, that it's everywhere, that we can't see it, that we are in danger every day, that our bodies are constantly, our minds are constantly under stress. And what that means, what that does to our brain is puts us into a state of needing to focus on our base needs, shelter and such. And so a lot of times, and this happens with me too, is I feel like I'm not being nearly as productive as I should be. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And so I tend to back away from that a little bit when I recognize it, and have empathy for myself and recognize that this is completely unprecedented. And that when I have this self-compassion from me, for my situation, that's strength. I can take a breath, realize the situation I'm in, and help myself. And that helps me then help the people on my team, my friends, etc., much better than if I am focused on stress and danger. And when I'm able to kind of start where I am, not where I should be. So when I am focused on, I should be somewhere. Honestly, one of my goals in life is to stricken the word should from the English language. I honestly think we have a tendency to, especially in the US, to should ourselves to death. I should know how to do this. I should be doing these things. Well, how about we take a step back and realize that where we are right now is where we are, and have some empathy for ourselves and pay attention to what is important to us at this moment. And then, as I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite parts of the design thinking framework is this concept of failure immunity, that we need to fail early and to learn often. I think sometimes we get stuck in the trap of success. When we are successful, then we are happy and we put it aside, we're done, we're good. When in reality, oftentimes we learn better when we fail. And when we recognize, and I say this a lot to students in class, when you recognize that we are not expected to be perfect. We are expected to do the best that we can. And when we don't and learn from that, that is better than being successful all the time and not learning. Recognizing that, especially for college students, that when you're here, you're not expected to know everything on day one or even on the last day of your final year as a senior. Life is a process, and that requires that we struggle, that we have challenges, that we fail, we make mistakes. But picking ourselves back up and learning from those mistakes is becoming failure immune and recognizing it's going to happen. And then moving away from being paralyzed by fear. Oftentimes, I find that this need to be perfect, this need to be right or to should ourselves relates directly to people, and myself included, thinking that we have to have it go from a straight line. I must go from point A to point B. That's success. I start here, there is a one way to get to where I need to go, and it's going to be clear. And I got to find that one answer. When in reality, life isn't like that. Life is like the arrow, if you will, on the right side. That's really what success looks like. And right now we're on one of those loops that is really making a sharp turn in a different direction. And allowing ourselves the space to be empathetic, to give ourselves compassion and recognize that is the first step. That allows us to recognize the problems, the real true problems that we have or that we need to address, as opposed to focusing on what we should be doing in the future. So that's the first principle of design thinking. The second is curiosity, that we need to be curious, that we should be pulled forward by our curiosity. I try to avoid using the word passion or saying to people, so you need to follow your passion. You need to, whatever you're passionate about, do that. That's been said to me a number of times in my life, and it can be stressful. What if I don't know what my passion is? What if I really feel like it's solid, or it kind of changes, or I think I'm passionate about something. If I don't know for sure, does that mean that I'm in trouble? Well, no. What we want you to do is we want you to build your passion. We want you to discover your passion. And the best way to do that is to be pulled forward by your curiosity. Again, I think a lot of times we have an inner critic. We have a shoulder inside of us in our heads that says we should be doing X, Y, and Z. But when I'm curious about this, it pulls me away. So I tell a lot of students that in design thinking, it's important to pay attention to where we are now, to take stock of how are we engaged at this moment? What's engaging me now? What gives me energy right now? What takes energy from me right now? Oftentimes we do things that we're engaged with, but it really wears us out. So I mentioned I'm an introvert. When I have to give presentations much like this and have to be an extrovert, I'm engaged. I like doing this. It's fun. I enjoy having conversations with people and learning from the people who are at my talks. At the end of it, though, I'm exhausted. So paying attention to these things, knowing that, helps me better understand, one, what the real issue is, what my real problem is, as opposed to shooting myself. But then also recognizing, what am I most curious about? Where do I find the most energy? What engages me the most? And going in that direction. And so what we do in class, one of the exercises we do is called a good time journal. And that's part of the book, the Designing Your Life book. Also, there's a companion workbook. And there is pages and pages and pages of good time journal entries. Writing down, where were you? What were you doing? Who were you with? Were you working with particular objects or people? Was it in a particular setting? Students often find that they pick out things like, I didn't realize that when I was doing X with this group of people that I was more engaged than when I was by myself. And recognizing those things helps us to better understand the direction that we should head. And often with students in particular, helps them better understand what they should major in, what they might want classes, classes they may want to take as electives, internships they may want to do, people they may want to talk to. That also kind of helps them identify what we call, or what design thinkers call, gravity problems, as opposed to wicked problems. So design thinking came from the engineering discipline, and engineers and those of us who are design thinkers, and a lot of us who aren't, really enjoy problems that are difficult, that look unsolvable but are solvable, that are actionable. Gravity problems are like gravity. Can't do anything about them. They're just things that we don't have any control over. and that we have to accept. And so when we bang our heads against that wall over and over and over, it makes it a lot more difficult to get to where we want to go and to feel excited, curious, maybe even passionate about it. And so when we're able to follow or be pulled forward by curiosity, we're more likely to identify those gravity problems and to kind of reframe that situation. So once we have empathy for ourselves, we've kind of been pulled forward by curiosity. The third principle is a bias towards action. And so the design thinkers, they like to call this prototyping or trying things out. Let's get out of the mind and out of the theoretical and do things. And there are some kind of typical or very simple principles they have for doing prototypes. Now, when I was first introduced to design thinking, I thought about prototyping as I've got to build a model. I've got to have a working prototype. Well, no, that's not the case at all. It's important that that you keep it simple, these prototypes, these trying things out. Take a big project and chunk it into small pieces. And actually that is neurologically speaking for us as humans, our brains, we tend to process things better in small pieces. And when we try to solve massive problems all at once, we try to change our lives overnight, we become paralyzed. And so when we keep it simple, we address one small question at a time. That's really when prototyping is most effective. Use what you have available to do your test or ask for it, talk to people. That's one thing that you have available to you. Iterate quickly. Do it a lot. Like I said earlier, fail early and learn often. And remember that prototyping is not a thought experiment. We have to get out there and have some kind of physical experience, except for maybe in the case of a pandemic. Maybe a pandemic will be the exception to that particular rule. But when we try things, as opposed to just thinking about things, it helps us become a lot more failure immune, and we learn a lot from it. And that's why it's an important aspect of design thinking. And the final or the principle, the main principle that I wanted to discuss is radical collaboration. I think a lot of times we assume that, and particularly in this day and age with social media, that great innovations happen or come from individuals, which isn't the truth at all. Barring or outside of things like the Sistine Chapel or major works of art, that kind of stuff, most of our major innovations in history were done in groups. Edison did it in large, he had a lot of people working with him, so did Zuckerberg, all of them. And when we collaborate, when we realize that we're not alone, that we have people around us, even if we don't know them, the better it is for us. And honestly, a lot of people have a lot more time on their hands nowadays. And particularly a lot of parents I know would really appreciate an opportunity to talk to someone outside of their children more often. So this is a great opportunity, I think, COVID, to connect with people. And a lot of students I talk to, a lot of people I talk to, adults too, say to me, well, I don't really have anything to offer to people when I talk to them. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. When you share your ideas, when you ask questions of people, you are giving back to them as well. When a lot of times when people have a chance to help others with an idea or answer their questions, they become much more connected to them. They become a lot more engaged and curious. And so it's a great time to do that. And one suggestion I've heard from people is that we should create our own board of directors. We should have 4 or 5 people like confidants or mentors or people who aren't afraid to tell us the truth, that we can turn to, who we can turn to share ideas and give presentations. And I like that idea. And I think it's a great way to give back to those individuals too. And you know, nowadays the cost of talking to people is next to zero. A lot of times I tell people, ask people to go to coffee, ask someone to coffee. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. Now we have the ability just to connect with people virtually. And so this concept of radical collaboration is, I really hit home with our students, because oftentimes I think that they assume that they are the only ones who are experiencing something. Their ideas are not great. They shouldn't share their ideas because they're not fully formed. And unfortunately, I've had a lot of students say to me, well, I didn't come into the Career Center because my resume wasn't ready. Share these ideas with us. Come and talk to us. We want to help you. So do a lot of other people. So do a lot of alumni. So do a lot of non-alumni, faculty, etc. And so those are the four main principles that I wanted to go through in design thinking. And what I wanted to do now is to kind of take those, operationalize them a bit, and talk about some small action steps that we can take during this time to set ourselves up to be prepared for what happens after COVID. And I will tell you that I was hesitant. I was hesitant to talk about, to be very rah-rah and excited about this, because I know it's not an easy time out there for a lot of people. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are home by themselves or are uncertain about the future. So as I go through these things, remember that doing one small thing that really kind of pulls you forward is most important. Some of these may not speak to you, some may, but they're meant to be small things that you can pick apart slowly but surely, and know that you don't have to do all of them or even one of them all at once. Be empathetic with yourself, have compassion for yourself, and just pick them apart and feel like you've accomplished something. That's really very important. The first one I put up here, the first couple relate to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is a free service. You should definitely use the free version of it. Update your profile. Take a couple minutes just to add a few things in. Write a quick summary of who you are. There are a lot of good training materials from LinkedIn out there on how to do it. Just take a few minutes to look at those. That is really very helpful. For me, I find that when I get on LinkedIn, even just for a minute, an hour goes by and I don't even know where it went. I'm talking, communicating with people, learning new things. It kind of sucks me in. If that works for you, great. LinkedIn is also, let's see. Oops. Here we go. LinkedIn is also a great way to connect with Mary Washington's alumni. Now, I will tell you that alumni from Mary Washington are amazing. They are ready to go. They are ready to connect. They are ready to help. I've had a lot of alumni connect with me and say, hey, look, how do I help? Connecting with them on LinkedIn is a great way to do that. And this is just a view of how you get that, what the screen looks like from Mary Washington. If you go to LinkedIn and search for the University of Mary Washington, you'll get to this page and you click alumni in the left-hand menu. Just take a couple of minutes to kind of peruse who's out there, who's doing what, do some searches. Who knows, somebody might pop up that you think is doing something really, really interesting or cool. Shoot them a note, or don't. Just do something small. Another small thing I like to tell a lot of people to do is just take a look at the groups inside LinkedIn. And this is a part of LinkedIn that I don't think a lot of people take advantage of. There are literally hundreds of thousands of groups on LinkedIn related to every possible discipline or idea or group, locale, job search idea, what have you. Take a minute to type in some words that you're particularly interested in. If you're interested in international development jobs located in San Francisco, search for a group. These are contained groups of people who have the similar interests that want to help each other. I know Mary Washington has a number of groups. Use it to your advantage and have some fun with it. Maybe start your own group. Start pulling people together. It's a great way to give back and also to connect with a lot of great people. Another really good site that many of you may know about, students I hope in particular do, is Handshake. And Handshake is the online career management system that we use for our students and for alumni. Handshake has done a really good job. The organization has done a really great job of putting out a lot of great information useful to people now. And so one of the things they did, I just put this up there, is they have a list of the 500 companies hiring right now listed in Handshake. If you're an alum or a student, you will have access, or you do have access to Handshake. If you don't, you can go to our page here. If you go to the Career Center's homepage, go to students, actually on the right-hand side, upper right-hand corner there, you can click Handshake and you can register, and we'll get you in. It's not just a place to find jobs or internships, it's also a great place to connect with other Mary Wash students, and then also students from around the country and around the world, honestly. It's also got hundreds and thousands of employers who post jobs and things in there, but it's a really great resource. So take a look at that. And this also gives you a quick snapshot of what we have available, or some of the things we have available from the Career Center on our website. Take a look at Handshake, great system. I also wanted to make a kind of a suggestion to just take a look at some of the free online training courses that are out there. I found out not too long ago that the Central Rappahannock Regional Library makes lynda.com, or what's now called LinkedIn Learning, available. You can really, there are thousands of courses on here, some of which lead to certifications you can take advantage of. I went through the other day and found some not only technological or IT related programming I was interested in, but also some other things like around management and leadership and such that I'm going to take advantage of. And because it's through my public library, it's completely free to me. And as a lot of us know, there are, and here's another example of some of the things that you can, some of the courses you can take on LinkedIn Learning. It's really high production value and great content. And there are great free courses available to you. One of the lists that you can find, listing all the places like Coursera or edX, et cetera, that are out there. This is a great time to kind of pick up a lot of skills that maybe you've been putting off or have thought that you're interested in. If you're curious about it, take a look at it. If you think that you need it for your career, then now's a good time to do it. Or not. I mean, I've heard of a lot of people who, I've decided to take up a new foreign language. Well, that does not appeal to me at all. It just seems like a lot of work. And so I'm not going to do that. I think I am going to take a couple minutes to try and learn how to use SharePoint. That's one of the things I need to do. For students who are out there, a great new kind of up-and-coming phenomenon in the world is something called micro-internships. Now, Parker Dewey is one of the companies that is connecting students to employers who have short-term opportunities for students, all of which are paid. They can run, I believe, anywhere from 2 days or 2 weeks up to 2 months long, more than that. And it's all virtual. And students go on there, it's very professional. They can apply, they have to have a great resume, and then employers choose them. It's a great way to kind of get your foot in the door somewhere, get a little experience. While a lot of the positions, internships there are IT related, there are others in there that look at more social sciences, marketing, advertising, et cetera, as well. So take a look at that. That's a good opportunity. And kind of in the same vein is freelancing online. There are a lot of places, if you have a habit or something you enjoy doing, a hobby, I should say, that you kind of want to maybe make a little money doing. There are some places where you can put yourself out there and make a little money on the side, maybe get some experience. 40 to 45% of our current workforce are independent contractors, are a part of the gig economy. So this kind of area is really picking up. It might be a good way to make a little extra money, and some of the platforms make it pretty easy for you to market yourself and start pulling in some clients. Finally, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't put in another plug for us, the Career Center here at Mary Washington. We are happy to help and happy to do what we can. We have a lot of things going on, a lot of virtual things. We've kind of pivoted to virtual very quickly. And I personally have decided that our team, we are going to keep all of our services at the virtual level into the summer, into the fall, because most of what we're doing relates to, it can be done virtually. And a lot of what employers will be doing is virtual as well. And so I think that it's an opportunity, this is an opportunity for us as an organization to kind of go in that direction. So we're happy to help as best that we can. All right, so I think that is my last main slide there. And I am happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
All right,
And again, I apologize for that technical issue in the middle.
That's okay, that kept me on my toes.
Yeah.
You can stop sharing your screen. We might be able to go dual screen.
All right.
And I can pull up the questions that have been asked. I have two questions right now. The first one asks, how can you grow that self-compassion and empathy for yourself?
Yeah, great question. That is not easy to do. And it takes time. And that, honestly, I think asking that question is really the first step towards doing it. When you ask that question of yourself, it means that you really want to pursue it. So follow that. When that inner critic comes out, and it always comes out. For me, it comes out quite a bit. I can be doing this better. So-and-so is doing it better. Ask yourself, actually just say to the critic, you know what, I get it. You're there for a reason. You're there to kind of protect me. You're there to kind of keep me from danger or things that I don't understand, but I'm doing okay. Just give that a shot and start small. Everything kind of starts small. You can't do it all at once, but I think it's a practice. It takes time. And recognize that you're going to fail. You're going to stumble. That's exactly what's expected. Learn from it.
Great. I have one more question here.
Okay.
And the question is, I suspect from a student or a recent grad,
Great.
how would you go about connecting with alumni or even people beyond UMW professionally, especially ones that you don't personally know? That's a great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. It can be a little scary to do that, and it's the very scary or unattractive word networking that people kind of shy away from. I think the first step, and again, it kind of goes back to the self-compassion thing, is recognize that you have something to give, and be authentic about your interest in this person and what they do. It's important to realize that when you connect with someone and you're authentic and you have an interest, a similar interest, they are going to be not only willing to kind of answer your questions, they're going to be more than ready to help as best as they can. You make these connections with them. It doesn't always happen that way. And a lot of times you don't ever hear back from someone, or they say no, or what have you. Don't take that personally. It just means they have other things going on. What I would say is take the time to find out as much as you can about the individual, the organization. Go on LinkedIn. If you can, I guess Facebook would be a good one too, what have you. Talk to other connections that you have. Find a way to make a warm call. So we all know that a cold call is you pick up the phone, you don't know somebody, and you call them out of the cold. You call them cold, they don't know you. While that isn't as efficient or as effective, having a warm call is better. So someone introducing you, someone saying, oh, I know so-and-so, talk to them. And sometimes it takes 1, 2, 3 or more degrees of separation from someone to get there. But at the same time, if you have to make that cold call, if you have to send that email, be clear, be concise, know the reason why you're emailing them, and be authentic. Don't ask for a job, don't ask for an internship. And in fact, my suggestion is when you're looking for people to connect with, don't start there. Don't start with who can get me a job, who can give me an internship. Start with who's doing something that I think is really cool, that I think is really interesting. And just start asking those questions and go down that rabbit hole. That happens to me a lot. One thing I like to do is just talk to people. I'll be in an Uber. It's happened to me once. I was in an Uber and I asked the person, is this what you do? And they went off on a story on how they are an energy broker, something I'd never heard of before. And it was a really interesting conversation. And when you show interest in someone else, they are likely to kind of show interest in you as well. So I hope that's helpful. Just try it. Just do it. Give it a shot. Sometimes it'll work. Most of the time, nothing will happen. But you're going to come out the other end with a lot more. You're going to know a lot more people.
We've got more questions coming in.
Great.
2 more. First, as a leader, how do you help a group embrace design thinking so that those skills can translate to those you serve?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it's been really important to, with my team, to bring them into the process. We started reading the Designing Your Life book together and going through the workbook together and trying things out and having conversations around that. I don't think it's effective to kind of just come in and say, look, this is what we're doing, we're going to do it, and you're going to like it, and we're going to learn a lot from it. I don't think that's effective. I think when you, one, come in and say, we're going to work on this together, but 2, then serve as an example for them. So a lot of times what I do is, when we talk about how do we solve this problem, I say, are we really getting at the root problem? Is this a gravity problem, or is this something that we can really solve? Is it actionable? Or is it something that we just can't get around? And let's really focus on who our customers are. Let's have empathy for our students, for our alumni. If they aren't coming to events, maybe that's just one of those gravity problems that we can't get around. We have empathy for students who just have too many things going on. So how do we take advantage of what is in place at the university to get in front of students in such a way that doesn't add to their workload, for example? So I think when you start to model those things, your example for things, it's helpful. It's not easy, but it is a lot of fun, honestly, as we kind of pick up the ball and run with it. We had a lot of fun doing the Good Time Journal, recognizing where we find energy. And it's a great way to kind of come together as a team too, because I was able to better understand who my team was and where they found energy and how they engaged or they preferred to engage. It can be fun.
Do you have any tips for maintaining a network as you progress through your career?
Yeah. Um, that's a really good question because I think, it's when you make a connection with someone, it doesn't just end. It's like, oh, okay, I've got a network now, I'm done. No, I think the real heavy lift comes in staying in contact with people. Some people are really, really good at this. I take pride in keeping track and knowing where everybody is, what they're doing, staying in touch, writing those personal cards. I'm not as good at that. And I find for me, what helps is maybe just shooting a quick note to someone, just on a new job or something. Technology really helps with this. So for example, like on LinkedIn, it'll give you notifications saying, oh, Paul just passed his 3-year anniversary at this job. Well, I'll shoot him a note, just a quick one, say, hey, congrats. And I think that's a good way to kind of stay in touch with people. I think being authentic is really important as well. When you're not authentic with someone and you're not being sincere, it comes off that way and people are going to be less likely to want to stay in touch. At the same time, though, I don't think that you should, I guess this goes back to being authentic. You should do what comes naturally to you. If you're like me, you're not that good at kind of staying in touch with people as much as you think you should. Do what you can and be upfront and honest with someone and say, look, I'm sorry, I kind of fell off the face of the earth. I saw that you're doing X, Y, and Z. And you started doing that a year ago. Congrats. Let's reconnect. I want to hear what's going on. Be authentic and be sincere. I think that's probably the most important tip.
Okay. And finally, are informational interviews still useful in place of a cold call or exploring your curiosity to see if it leads to a position or job?
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Informational interviews are amazing. In fact, in the book, design thinking, they call them prototype interviews. So information interviews are a very good example of trying things out, doing things, having a bias towards action. So when you connect with someone and are very curious about what they do and you're authentic about it, that is really, it's exciting because you learn great things and you become more excited about something. And you may find that it's not as exciting as you thought. That's great too. Because then, I don't want to go down that road. There's something called the Benjamin Franklin effect that I learned about a while ago, where Benjamin Franklin found out that one of his opponents politically, if he asked him for a favor, and he did, and this person did that favor for them, they then were connected. They were connected directly, and if I understand it correctly, psychologically, then that person became more interested in Ben's success. So when you do informational interviews, when you connect with alumni or other employers, keep that in mind too. I'm not saying you should always ask for a favor, but when you connect with them and have a conversation, ask them questions and you're interested in what they do, they're giving of themselves and are going to be more likely to want to help you and see you succeed. So yes, information interviews are wonderful, and I think you should do as many of them as you possibly can. In fact, just talking to people, well, we can't do this as much anymore on the street or in your Uber, that's an informational interview. It's good to kind of be aware of what it is you're learning and ask the right questions and have fun with it. And know for a fact that you have something to give to them too. It is not one-sided.
Great. Well, you can't see these, Paul, but there's a lot of nice comments of support. Great. Thanking you for all of your time. It sounds like people got a lot out of it.
Good.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and to our viewers at home for joining us digitally for tonight's presentation. As a quick reminder, this presentation will be available for viewing here on the University of Mary Washington Alumni Facebook page and on the UMW YouTube channel starting sometime tomorrow. There you can watch this and the full catalog of Mary Talks that go back 3 or 4 years. Our digital Mary Talk season continues in the coming weeks. Please mark your calendars for Wednesday, June 10th at 7:30. Dr. Pam Groth, Assistant Professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences, will be presenting a topic that will dive into how COVID-19 is affecting climate change. So look for an email communication in the coming weeks with more information, including a longer description of the talk and viewing information. And this is the part of the presentation where we usually invite you to stay and enjoy some refreshments before departing. And like last week, I encourage you all to hit the fridge for a snack. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Take care.